the University of Texas is on track to spend $35 to $40 million on their football roster, which is a whoa, I think, for a lot of people, holy crap moment. That is an average. If it's $40 million, let me do the math on this. And obviously it's an average. Everybody is being paid differently. But presuming an 85 scholarship roster, that's an average of over $400,000 per player on an 85 scholarship roster. This is, and I think almost everybody out there would agree with me, absolutely and completely unsustainable. And I've made the analogy. This is what happened when the Berlin Wall came down in Europe back in the day. East Berlin, West Berlin are united, and you go from many of these communist countries, no capitalism at all, to unregulated capitalism overnight. And you can sell a kidney, and you can sell a nuclear weapon. And eventually that Wild West aspect of capitalism gets dialed back, and I think that's going to happen in college sports. There are reports of colleges paying 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 million dollars I've even seen on a 13-player basketball roster. I mean, this is bonkers town. And so eventually this is going to lead to a CBA, employment agreements, and this is not going to be able to continue. In the meantime, guys are making money hand over fist. I'm a capitalist. But I have to tell you, the challenge here is going to be if they try to rein back in these salaries, which the talk is that when this settlement agreement gets signed off on by the judge, and Adam, you can let me know the exact dollar figure. I think it's $20.4 million that schools are going to be able to pay themselves to athletes. How do you unring the bell when Texas is paying $35 to $40 million on their football roster right now? How do you go back to them and say, actually, everybody's going to have to take a big pay cut now? Your average player was making $400,000 a year. And now your average player is going to be making, I don't know, $100,000 a year. How do you go back on salaries? One of the biggest rules out there is most people don't ever want to take a pay cut. You probably don't want to get paid the same amount that you're already getting paid, no matter what you do. But once you ask somebody to take a pay cut, look out. You got major problems coming. College football, I think, is headed for major problems. College basketball, too. Because guys are getting paid now more than they could make to play in the pros. Think about this for a minute. There are lots of guys. If you are drafted outside of the first 3 rounds in college football, you make way less money playing in the NFL as a 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round draft pick than many guys do to play in college football right now. That's going to sound crazy. Some of you are going to be like, it's going to be a holy crap moment. The average guy who is a 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round draft pick that is coming out of a power conference school, SEC or Big Ten for sure, many of those guys are going to make less money in the NFL than they were making in college. And I might be the only person who is beating this drum. I haven't seen hardly anybody talk about it or write about it. If you doubt me on that, think about where college athletics has gone. We now have guys suing to be able to stay playing college sports. It used to be, if you remember Maurice Clarett, if you remember Michael Williams, I think was the guy's name, it used to be that people filed lawsuits to get out of college sports faster. Guys in college didn't want to have to go to college for a year for basketball. They didn't want to have to stay for 3 years for football they were filing lawsuits to get out. Mike Williams, I think was that guy's name, if I misspoke, with USC wide receiver back in the day, if I remember. Maurice Clarett sued with him. It's probably 20 years ago-ish. Maurice Clarett sued after his freshman year, didn't want to have to wait. Same thing with Mike Williams before they were eligible to be drafted. Now guys like Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt are suing to be able to stay in college football and college sports longer. Why are they doing that? Because they stand to make more money playing college than they do in the NFL. You had, I think, the lowest number of early entrants that we've ever seen for the NBA draft because you can make more money playing college basketball than you can in the NBA as long as you're not one of those first 30 picks. You don't even get a guaranteed contract. You make more money in college by far, typically, than you're going to make playing overseas in the European leagues. This is all kind of wild, right? It's a new era. People are not used to it. And I think in general, it's going to have to be reconciled. It's going to have to be fixed. And the only way that I see to fix it, and I've been saying this for, go back in a decade, probably, been writing it, been saying it, you're going to have players as employees in some way. You're going to have a collective bargaining agreement, and you're going to have to spin off basketball, men's, and football into for-profit entities. It's the only solution. And otherwise, the spending is just untenable. And you know what nobody talks about anymore? Nobody even mentions anything having to do with education. But remember, ostensibly, the reason college athletics existed was to provide scholarships to athletes so that they could pursue their education while also playing sports. Am I the only person who thinks it's impossible for guys to get educations when they're going to 3 or 4 different colleges? We're not even pretending anymore. When was the last player you heard not be eligible for academics? I can't remember. It used to not be an uncommon occurrence. Can any of y'all remember the last player who didn't get the grades he needed to be eligible? Remember, this used to be not uncommon. Guy didn't have enough credit hours. You know, none of these players even go to class anymore, by and large. They all take online classes, and most of them are not even taking the online classes. They got somebody else doing all the work for them. They're not even required to show up in class anymore. And again, I understand, Clay, you're a dad now. I got a kid who's going to be in college next fall. I feel badly for a lot of these college kids because it's hard to build relationships with people that will be friends with you for the rest of your life when you go to 4 colleges in 4 years or when you go to 3 colleges in 4 years. My best friends probably as a group right now are the people that I went to law school with. Now, it's been 20 years now, but the people that I probably text with the most outside of work are people that I went to law school with. And I still text with a lot of the guys that I'm buddies with from college, too. You don't develop those relationships and those friendships 3 months at a time, bailing and going to a variety of different schools. Most guys do not have prolonged careers outside of college for athletics. Most people, the benefit of going to college and playing a sport is the connections you make that allow you to get that first job and have some success when you're in your 20s. I feel like a lot of people are losing this. And I'm not sure that the average player is going to end up benefiting from an NIL era. That's my concern. The guy who's going to get super rich, Arch Manning, if you're going to go make a lot of money in the NFL, then the money you make in college is a pittance of whatever you're going to make in the NFL. But if you're just jumping around and you're making $300,000 one year and $300,000 the next year. And hey, you might make $1 million in college, and that's amazing. And hopefully you invest it well, and that gives you a good foundation going forward. Most of these guys are going to have no money left. They're going to have no education, and they're going to have no actual skills that they're able to translate into a real job. And a lot of them aren't even going to have relationships with anyone that allows them to get that start because they don't have marketable skills and they don't have great relationships. And again, I talked about this with the Nico story. To me, the job of a dad or mom is to have a 20-year horizon, not a one-year horizon. And I understand when you're 18, a year feels like it takes forever. You guys remember? When you're 18 to 22 feels like a lifetime to you if you go off to college. That's the reality of how this feels. It feels like forever. 15 years old or 14 years old when you start high school to 18 feels like a lifetime. I get it. The older you get, the faster that time passes, and the more you realize and see the longer horizon. And I feel like a lot of these guys are not making intelligent choices for themselves. They're making short-term decisions, and they're not getting the best results for them. And I preach it to my own kids. I'll preach it to you. I'll preach it to your kids if you need to pull them up and play this for them. Use the ball. Don't let the ball use you. A lot of kids are getting spit up and chewed out by basketball, football, baseball, hockey, whatever it is. And a lot of parents are buying into it too. And you're not developing marketable skills based on your sports talent. You are instead being used by that industry. And then as soon as you don't have value, you get kicked to the curb. And what do you have left? I think it's a really difficult choice and decision that lots of people need to be aware of.